I'm a weirdo. However, most likely you are too. Now, the reason I say this is because we do not think alike. We have different preferences and likings, and so we don't really have the same way of thinking. And I believe I've come to the conclusion of why this is. Now, back in elementary school around 5th grade, I had begun noticing that kids I had hung out with or played with a lot in the prior 5 years had begun becoming distant and essentially grouping themselves with others who had evolved their similar likings. Now, this is interesting because most countries and how people group together all around the world go on this premise of being grouped or uh, having their normalcy defined by who they hang out with or what they're doing most of the time. And throughout the world, this is true. If you look at the comparisons between countries like Japan and the US, you'll see major differences with their culture, traditions, and the religions that reside in each country. While Japan has mostly Eastern religions such as Buddhism and Hinduism, with small specks here and there, the U.S. has a variety of religions that have been found throughout the world, and is primarily an immigration nation, whereas there are tons more diversity, where there's a greater contrast in traditions and goes down in the country. Now, the reason that this happens is due to the location and the psyche of the people who reside in certain societies. The location creates a focal point of normal actions or things that people become used to, in terms of, in Japan versus the US, we drive on different sides of the road. And while this is majority of the world drive on the left hand, countries like Britain, Australia, New Zealand, and Japan as well drive on the left side. Another example of this change in normalcy is the fact that the US is the only country in the world that tends to go with their own system using Fahrenheit, inches, feet, and miles. Now, this is due to their location and what they've chosen to become normal, and normal not necessarily is what you would think it is. I mean, if you were to go be dropped off in Japan, you would not be used to seeing how things are run there. So you would kind of think everything is, in a sense, is weird. However, it is normal there, so in a sense you'd be the weird one out. Now, because this happens, we go back to how you were raised or brought up as a child. Your parents, your friends, the people who help shape you into who you are, that's what you're used to. That's what you learn. That's how you shape your thinking. Your thinking bases off of where you grow up, your community, who you're used to. And once you're taking out that element and seeing different things that you are not used to, you begin to think that things are weird, when in actuality they are quite normal. This happens to be very common with people, and why there are so many misunderstandings. Because they find things that other countries or people think are normal and misinterpret because of how weird they believe it to be, or how unfamiliar they are with that subject. It is true that many people have different beliefs, and their psyches are shaped due to the people and experiences they have. And because they are thinking are different from each other, people can interpret things differently. Say you and I were to go to a movie. Because you have seen more stuff than I have, you probably will interpret different things in the movie differently than I have. Per se, if you were to see The Incredibles and how the little boy always is waiting for something awesome to happen, you would interpret this as modernism or something, or I just see it as a kid wanting to see something amazing because I do not understand what you have seen or have not had the prior knowledge to make connections to other works. This also goes forth into how people can treat others, because their psyche tends to create boundaries around what they like, what they dislike, how to treat certain people, how to treat other people. It creates tensions that strain relationships that could be strengthened if we just take the time to understand them. Because we are too busy and afraid of changing our normalcy, we become in a sense unbalanced with who we can be or truly are, where we're supposed to be a culture or species that can learn, that can evolve, that can think for ourselves through what we learn, what we experience, that we completely forget that we are a learning species. We have intellect. So we tend to go to our instincts in a sense and defend what we find as our territory, our thinking, our way of life, our normalcy, and then try and attack it or force it upon what we find to be threatening our own. This tends to hurt. This tends to break relations, and it tends to shape normalcies that most likely would not have been shaped. This is what happened with Jim Crow, where many white folks in the South were afraid of African Americans rising up, so they created restrictions to keep, in a sense, their normalcy of the blacks are lower than them. They control the blacks. And it worked for a long time until radical thinkers who are willing to accept new policies, new ideas, new innovations of finding a way to voice their opinions, to change that normalcy. And this is why that we are able to live where we are today. We're constantly learning, constantly changing, because we are lowering our sense of normalcy. And that is why we are becoming weirder and weirder, yet becoming more normal. Thank you.